Hello everyone, this is Evan from BlazikenTCG, and today guys, I am going to be doing yet another matchup guide. This time we're going to be going over the Lost Box Kyogre deck. So I made a Turbo Lost Box matchup guide as my first video on this channel, and it's actually my most popular video. It has like almost 700 views, I think, which is crazy at the time of recording this. So I decided, since you guys really like the Lost Box content, I decided I would make another video in which I go over the Turbo Lost Box in all of its matchups. So, if you don't know, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this probably know how the deck works. So, the main idea of the deck is you play it as a normal Lost Box deck, but the way you close out the game is you play your deck down to 0 cards, then you use a Super Rod to shuffle back some energies, use a Mirage Gate to power up Kyogre, then use Energy Recycler to shuffle back 5 more energies, and since those 5 energies are the only cards in your deck, since you had 0 cards in your deck to begin with, you use Aqua Storm to discard the top 5, guaranteeing they're all energies, so you can knock out 2 Pokemon, or hit 2 Pokemon for 250 at once, so you could knock out 2 V Pokemon this way. So that's the main idea of the deck. It's a very hard deck to play, a very hard deck to pull the combo off, but I decided I would make a matchup guide, so let's get right into it, starting off with the Turbo Lost Box deck. So this deck, this is a deck that a lot of people would say is a bit unfavorable just because they might be a bit faster than you because they have a couple more vacuums and Force Seal Stones. I really think it's about even just because, I mean, they're not that much faster than you. They do have Roxanne, but a good Lost Box player can typically play around the Roxanne. So, pretty much what you're going to want to do in this matchup is just ping the, so just try and get Sableye online as early as possible, and then ping their Pokemon as fast as you can. You want to obviously knock out their Sableyes. If they're just going to trade Sableye for Sableye, you want to obviously knock theirs out. But if you ever have a turn where you don't have to knock out a Sableye, you want to knock out Manaphy and pressure them to Super Rod for it back and waste resources to get the Manaphy back. And if they don't, you can just Moonlight Shuriken them. So yeah, pretty much just whoever gets Sableye online first wins. You could put a Roxanne in here just for the mirror match, or a Snorlax. Snorlax is also really good, and I actually do like Snorlax in this list. So Snorlax could be put in here just for the mirror match. But yeah, Turbo Lost Box, just try and get Sableye online first. It's correct to go second in this matchup, just so you can use a Chorus and Spit Innocently to take the first prize card, and then just try and hit Sableye turn 2. So the next matchup we'll go over is the Gardevoir EX deck. So this matchup is a matchup that a lot of people think is very favorable for the Lost Box player. I actually don't think it's as good as people say if the Guardy player is able to spam Iono consistently. But pretty much just get Sableye online quickly and start knocking out their routes. They're typically going to have only 2 Super Rods, so you can... so if they start using Super Rods, you can knock out the Manaphy, and if you know they have both Super Rods in the discard pile, or, if you know they have them both in the discard, you can knock out Manaphy, and then it's just gone forever, and then you can start using Moonlight Shuriken and even Aqua Storm to close out the game. Typically, Kyogre isn't going to be very helpful, but normally you're going to want to keep it around. Don't throw it in the Lost Zone in this matchup, because then they just basically don't have to put down Manaphy once they get everything evolved up. So you want them to have to waste that bench space on Manaphy. But just try and get Sableye as quickly as possible. Start knocking out their routes and Kirlias. If they ever have a turn where they don't have Manaphy, you can take advantage of that by using Moonlight Shuriken. Or if you are about to close out the game, use Aqua Storm. For the Mew VMAX, this is probably one of your easiest matchups. Just mainly what you're going to want to do in this matchup most of the time is knock out a Mew V very early with either Dragonite or Raikou. So then you have 4 prizes, and then just spend the rest of the game just trying to thin down your deck as effectively as possible, and then finish off the game with knocking out 2 Genesect Vs with Kyogre. So with this deck, you don't feel like you have to go with the Kyogre right off the bat, because then you might start burning resources that you need. You have a couple of turns, so once you knock out a Mew V, you basically are going to have 3 turns after that to thin as much as possible, and then the 4th turn you'll have to take a knockout with Kyogre. So you basically just have those 3 turns just to thin down your deck as much as possible. So with this matchup, just play kind of conservatively. Don't burn your resources trying to Kyogre too fast, because then you'll lose the game. Just make sure you are able to Aqua Storm at some point in the game, just whenever you have the combo. But don't rush it. For Arctur Umbreon, so this is probably one of your harder matchups. They have the Lost Cities and the Duraludon, which is really hard for this deck. So normally what you will want to do is you want to try and knock out their Arceus V-Star. You can do this with like Dragonite V plus Sableye. Another tech card you could put in here just so they can't knock out your Dragonite once you do that is Bravery Charm. That can be very helpful in this matchup, so you can Dragonite twice. But anyways, if you don't have Bravery Charm, just hit the Arceus for 250, then the next turn put some damage counters on it. Bravery Charm is really good in this matchup, so if you expect this deck to be popular, I would recommend playing it. But once you knock out the Arceus V-Star, you have the Duraludon VMAX as well. So if they put another Pokemon on the bench, you can just win the game that way. So let's say they put down Alakazam on the bench. You can escape rope. Well, you can put some damage on Duraludon first to bring it down to 250. Then you can escape rope the Alakazam, then Echoing Horn back the Arceus, and Aqua Storm that way. But otherwise, your other best bet is probably just going, if they play very good and they do not put down another Pokemon, so they have just the Duraludon, you're going to have to just work through the Duraludon with like Cramorant, Sableye, maybe even Raikou at some point. I've even one time used Drapion just because I had nothing else. So that's an option, I guess. You're going to have to just try and work through the Duraludon if they get set up perfectly with like Duraludon and nothing on the bench. And then once you work through the Duraludon, once you're about to knock it out, they'll have to put something else down. So yeah, this matchup, it's kind of hit or miss. If they don't get set up, you win. If they do get set up, you lose pretty much. But Kyogre is really good in this matchup. Then we have the Arceus Giratina. So this one's just kind of Arceus Judge Path. And that can be very annoying for the Lost Zone decks, because Judge Path, Iono Path, it can be very hard to recover from. So normally what you're going to want to do in this matchup is try and set up an Aqua Storm for 4 or as close to 4 as possible. So 3 also can work. So you just want to knock out an Arceus V and then ideally knock out 2 more V Pokemon with Aqua Storm. They're typically going to put down Bibarel or at least Squovit. So if you knock out the Arceus V-Star, let's say they had like another Arc V, you can escape rope something else to the active spot to send the Arceus V-Star to the bench, Echoing Horn another Arceus V, and Aqua Storm. That's probably your best bet in this matchup, because once you get down to just a few prizes, that's when Iono really is going to stick. And that's probably the main appeal to playing Kyogre right now, just because you can kind of play around Iono with it. But yeah, the Arceus decks are all kind of hit or miss. Like, if Judge Path doesn't stick, you probably will win this matchup, but a lot of times you will lose just because you get judged or Iono'd into a bad hand. Then we have the Lugia Archeops. So this matchup, you usually want to knock out a Lugia V-Star with Raikou V, so just trade 2 for 2. And then a lot of times they will have to put down Lumineon V just to get set up. So in that case, you can knock out like a Lumineon, a Tyranitar, something like that. 2 of those for Aqua Storm. Otherwise, Echoing Horn is really good because they're always going to have the Tyranitar V. So once you get down to 4 prizes after trading Raikou for Lugia, you can, if they attack with the Tyranitar V, then you can Echoing Horn the Lugia V, Escape Rope the Tyranitar to the bench, then Echoing Horn Lugia V, and then knock them both out with the Kyogre. Another play you can make is, there's actually a couple plays you can make in this matchup. You can go Cramorant Sableye to knock out a Tyranitar V, or you could go Sableye Ninja to knock out 2 Archeops. But if they have the Serena, which some lists are still playing, some are cutting, if they cut it, it's good for you. But if they do have the Serena, they could just, that won't work as well. But yeah, a lot of times they do have to put down Lumineon V, and if they do, that is very, very good for you. Next up, we have the Inteleon Urshifu. So this is a matchup that a lot of people say is really bad. I don't think it's as bad for Kyogre as some people say it is. So probably your best bet is going to be like Moonlight Shuriken, 2 Inteleon VMAXs, and then Aqua Storm them both to take all 6 prizes at once. Another play you could possibly make is Raikou into an Inteleon VMAX if you play Boss, but a lot of lists don't play Boss. But if you are playing Boss, that's another good play you can make. But yeah, probably just Moonlight Shuriken, both Inteleons, then set up an Aqua Storm play that way. However, that strategy is kind of vulnerable to Escape Rope. They're normally not going to attack with Gmax Spiral, but if they do, that is a play they can make just so you don't have to, just so they don't have to worry about Aqua Storm. If that's the case, you could just Raikou their Inteleon. But yeah, probably just try and set up a knockout on 2 VMAXs. Another thing you can do is Lost Mine the Octillery and then knock out like a VMAX and a V. That's something else you can do. Then the next deck that I will be going over is the Chien-pao Baxcalibur deck. So this deck, pretty much just you want to try and get stabilized online as quick as possible and start knocking out Frigibaxes, because they only play like 1 Super God, so their Pokemon recovery is limited. So if you can just start knocking out the Frigibaxes, then it can be very tough for them to continuously get them back. Always put down Manaphy in this matchup. Something else I forgot to mention for the Inteleon Urshifu matchup, Manaphy is very, very important. Always have Manaphy in play at all times, otherwise they're just going to pick you apart with Urshifu and Ninja. So Manaphy is always very, very good. If you have Roxanne, which is a tech card I mentioned briefly earlier, that can really stick hard in this matchup as well, just to make it harder for them to pull off like the Cologne Cross Switcher play. With Ninja, that's pretty much their main win con. If they pull off that play, they a lot of times just win the game. If not, they a lot of times lose the game. So, also try and Lost 9 Manaphy and then just set up for a Kyogre knockout on like 2 Chien-paos or a Chien-pao and an Arceus or Chien-pao Lumineon, whatever they have, just try and knock out 2 V Pokemon at once. And then the last deck I'll be going over, or actually one more after this, but the Palkia V-Star deck. So no Baxcaliburs, just Palkia, Chien-pao. So this is kind of a newer deck that a lot of people have really, really enjoyed lately. So this one does not play Manaphy, which is very interesting. So this matchup, they also don't play Colognes a lot of times. Yeah, this list does not play Cologne. So this matchup should be a good matchup for you. Just try and knock out a Palkia V-Star or something with Raikou V, and then knock out like another Palkia and a Chien-pao with Kyogre. And then the last list I'll be going over is the Charizard EX deck. I know you can't really see it that well, but since Obsidian Flames is coming out, I decided I would just go over this one anyways. So with this matchup, similarly to Chien-bax, you just want to knock out the Charmanders as early as possible with Sableye. If they can't get down Manaphy, Moonlight Shuriken's really good against Charmander because you can take them both out at once. But yeah, Sableye is really good in this matchup. This should be a good matchup for you. Sometimes they play the double turbos like this list does, just so they can attack with the Arceus and the Pidgeots. But yeah, and then just try and like this list also only plays just 1 Super God. So just once you knock out the Manaphy when they have no Super Gods left, that Manaphy's gone for good, and that's when Kyogre gets very, very scary for them. So Kyogre's also pretty solid in this matchup. So there you have it, guys. That is the Kyogre Lawson Box mashup guide. If you enjoyed this video, I really would appreciate it if you would hit that like button and the subscribe button. It would mean a lot to me. I've been working really hard on these videos, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.